Have you ever wondered who truly owns you and your life's work? This isn't merely a rhetorical question, it's a profound philosophical inquiry that probes into the essence of individual autonomy and freedom. Today, we delve into the concept of self-ownership. At its core, self-ownership is a powerful idea that every individual holds exclusive control over their own body and life. You are not owned by any government, society, or institution. Instead, you're your own sovereign entity, with an inalienable right to your own existence and the fruits of your labor. Imagine your life as a vast, untouched canvas. You, and only you, hold the brush to paint the picture that is your life. You decide the colors, the strokes, the style. You determine the narrative, the themes, the emotions that define your existence. This is the essence of self-ownership, but self-ownership isn't just about control, it's about responsibility as well. It implies that you are accountable for your actions, for the decisions you make, and the consequences that follow. If you make a mistake, you bear the brunt of it. If you succeed, the credit is yours alone. Self-ownership also extends to the fruits of your labor. The work you do, the value you create, belongs to you. Just as an artist owns their masterpiece, you own the results of your hard work. In a world that respects self-ownership, no one can take away your earnings, like through taxation, without your consent. This concept is not just philosophical, but practical too. It forms the bedrock of free societies, underpinning the principles of property rights, voluntary exchange, and personal responsibility. It's probably the most powerful shield against coercion, exploitation, and tyranny. In essence, you are the sole owner of yourself and your actions, which forms the basis of free markets. The freedom to choose, to act, to create, associate, and to trade are all rooted in the concept of self-ownership. And as we'll see in the next scenes, this foundational concept has profound implications for how we understand free markets, morality, law, and government. When we think of self-ownership, we also have to think of a free market. But what exactly does free market mean, and how does it relate to self-ownership? Well, in its simplest form, a free market is an economic system where individuals are free to trade goods and services with each other without any interference or coercion. It's a place where you, me, and everyone else can buy, sell, and trade what we have for what we want. It's like a grand bazaar, filled with the hustle and bustle of human ingenuity and initiative, where the only limit is our imagination and ambition. But how does this relate to self-ownership? Remember, self-ownership is the concept that you have the right to control your own body, time, and property. When we talk about free markets, we are extending this idea to the economic sphere. Just as you have the right to decide what you do with your body and time, you also have the right to decide what to do with the fruits of your labor, the goods and services you produce, and others have the same rights. In a free market, we respect these rights by allowing individuals to voluntarily trade with each other. This is why free markets are often described as voluntary exchanges. It's not just about making money or buying stuff, it's about respecting each other's rights and freedoms. It's about allowing individuals to make their own decisions, to pursue their own interests, to shape their own destinies. This doesn't mean that free markets are a free-for-all. There are rules and principles to follow, like honesty, fairness, and respect for property rights, but these rules emerge from our shared respect for each other's self-ownership, not from some external authority dictating what we can and cannot do. So when we talk about free markets, we're not just talking about economics, we're talking about freedom, respect, and self-ownership. We're talking about a society where individuals are free to use their resources as they see fit, to pursue their own happiness, to live their own lives. Free markets, therefore, are the ultimate manifestation of self-ownership in the economic sphere. Looking at self-ownership and free markets, we can conclude the objective morality of both, especially regarding humanity as a whole. Now, one might question, why are free markets considered the only moral stance for humanity? Free markets are more than just places to buy and sell goods and services. They're arenas where principles of morality and ethics play out in real time. The fundamental principles of free markets, such as voluntary interactions, respect for individual rights, and personal responsibility, foster a sense of fairness and equality. Let's start with voluntary interactions. In a free market, no one is forced to buy or sell. Every transaction is a consensual agreement between two parties. This voluntary nature of trade respects the self-ownership of individuals, as they are free to make choices based on their own needs and interests. No middleman government. Then there's the respect for individual rights. In a free market, everyone has the right to own and control their property. This includes the fruits of their labor and the products or services they create or offer. No one can take away or infringe upon these rights without consent. This respect for individual rights underpins the moral fabric of a free society. No middleman government. Lastly, free markets promote personal responsibility. When individuals are free to make their own economic decisions, they must also bear the consequences of those decisions. This encourages careful decision-making and fosters a culture of accountability. No middleman government redistributing wealth to failing corporations and/or failing banks. However, critics argue that free markets can lead to exploitation, as powerful entities might take advantage of those less fortunate. This only happens because there is a government protecting these entities through its monopoly on force. Remember, the essence of a free market is voluntary exchange. Exploitation implies force or coercion, which is antithetical to the principles of a free market. In fact, a true free market system discourages exploitation by promoting competition. When businesses compete, they are incentivized to offer the best value to consumers, which ultimately benefits everyone. So free markets uphold the principles of self-ownership and individual freedom, making them the only moral stance for humanity. Are you feeling apprehension and afraid of being free? You're thinking you need law and order because you're incapable of being responsible for yourself? You're probably asking, but how can we have law and order without a governing body to enforce it? This is a common question, but the answer lies in understanding the concept of a decentralized legal system. That's right, we're talking about a system where laws emerge from social customs and private arbitration, objective reality, rather than from a central authority. In a decentralized legal system, the laws aren't dictated from above. Instead, they arise organically from the interactions and agreements of individuals within society. These laws are shaped by social customs, traditions, and the collective wisdom of the community. They are fluid and flexible, adapting to changes in societal values and norms. Now, don't misconstrue that there aren't universal objective laws for man. Murder, for example. Now, you might be wondering, how does this system enforce these laws? Well, it's through private arbitration. In a society that values self-ownership, individuals have the freedom to choose their own legal arrangements. They can opt for private arbitrators, who are neutral third parties, to resolve disputes. The decisions of these private arbitrators are respected and upheld by the community because they are based on mutually agreed upon rules and principles, based on objective morality and human rights. This system respects the principles of self-ownership and free markets. Individuals are not subject to arbitrary laws imposed by a governing body. Instead, they have the freedom to choose their own legal arrangements, to engage in voluntary transactions, and to resolve disputes in a manner that they deem fair and just. Such a system may seem alien to many, given our familiarity with centralized legal systems. But it's important to remember that decentralized legal systems have existed in various forms throughout history, and they continue to exist today in certain societies. In conclusion, a decentralized legal system is not an anarchist's, even an American's dream, but a practical and viable alternative to centralized governance. It's a system that respects individual freedom, upholds the principles of self-ownership and free markets, and allows for the organic development of laws based on social customs and private arbitration. Law without government, then, is not a lawless society, but one where laws reflect the voluntary interactions of free individuals. We should question our perceived reality even more. So why should we care about self-ownership and free markets? Well, let's dive into the practical benefits these concepts bring to our society. First and foremost, self-ownership and free markets fuel innovation. When individuals own their ideas, they are motivated to think outside the box, to push boundaries, and to create. The US is a perfect example of this and how it is the leading country in most technological advancements. It has predominantly allowed for people to invent and innovate. Self-ownership and free markets are the spark that ignites the engine of innovation. From the light bulb to the smartphone, many of the inventions that have revolutionized our world can trace their origins back to a system that rewards, as mentioned before, individual creativity and initiative. Government didn't intervene. Additionally, self-ownership and free markets drive economic growth. Free markets are the arenas where businesses compete, and through this competition, resources are allocated efficiently. Businesses strive to provide better products and services at lower prices, which leads to economic growth. We've seen this time and time again in countries that have embraced free markets and seen their economies flourish as a result. India is a prime example here. Poverty continues to decline in India. Governments stopped intervening. Perhaps most importantly, self-ownership and free markets uphold individual freedom. In a society where individuals have the right to own themselves and their property, they also have the freedom to make choices about their lives. They can choose what to buy, where to work, and how to live. This is a freedom that is fundamental to human dignity, and it's a freedom that is protected by the principles of self-ownership and free markets. Understanding these concepts is crucial in today's world. As we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, we need to remember the power of self-ownership and free markets. They're not just abstract theories or economic models, they are principles that have real-world implications for our lives, our societies, and our future. By embracing self-ownership and free markets, we not only uphold our individual rights and freedoms, but also pave the way for a prosperous and just society. These principles have the power to shape our world for the better, and it's up to us to make that happen.